How's it going, everyone? This is your Astrology Horoscope for July 17th, 2023. I'm astrologer Alex Skiles, and welcome to the Moonbase. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Hope you all had a great weekend. And today and this week is probably the most important, pivotal week of the year of 2023. And the nodes are changing from Taurus and Scorpio to Aries and Libra. Venus is going retrograde later this week, and all of these huge, massive shifts are being kicked off with the new moon in Cancer. So I think the first most significant thing is that, Pluto being at 29 degrees, and come November 2024, that's going to be the end of Pluto and Capricorn for good. For the rest of our lives. We won't ever see it again for another 266 years. So, this is really setting things in stone here. We've climbed a long way. We've climbed a big mountain, this Pluto and Capricorn. And definitely with this new moon in Cancer and these nodes shifting on the same day, like, we're entering into a whole new world. So this is a portal that we're jumping into here. So with this new moon in Cancer, and definitely with it opposing Pluto, it's not exact. It's about 5-degree orb. But still, this is the last time we're going to see a new moon in Cancer opposing Pluto. And this is really closing out this entire cycle that we've been going through for the past 15 years, since 2008. And Pluto has really broken down, the structures, in the world, but also, what it means to have a structure in our lives, especially when it comes to family structures. And this is definitely setting the tone for how we're going to be going about creating, our immediate structure and where we feel emotionally secure. And this is a really great new moon. It is an aspect to Neptune as well. The sun isn't exact, but then the moon will come and trine Neptune later on in the day. So it definitely is this highly sensitive new moon here. So this is definitely a rebirth. As Pluto is moving towards its final degrees, especially now that it's going to be squaring these nodes, as the nodes are moving, this is an absolute death. Like, I know we're all experiencing some sort of death in some sort of way, and this isn't a literal death. This is where we're really becoming the next version of ourselves. And this new moon is really opening that door, and it's the new phase for what that's going to look like. And these nodes will just move forward here, and here we are around 1:30 in the afternoon on the West Coast. The nodes are officially going to be in Aries and Libra. So this is squaring Pluto, and the moon is gonna oppose Pluto, so there's gonna be this big grand cross here coming up, and this is as fated as it gets. This is the moment where we start really realizing and waking up to the fact that we really have to individuate and take our own independent paths. And we're going to see a lot of this as these next 18 months kind of unfold. And this is really dissolving and breaking down just any sort of codependent situation or feelings where, you're not in your own identity and, living in your truest self. Because this is what this North Node in Aries is really calling us to do, is to really trust our impulses, and it's like, we're always told, it's like, you can't just act on impulse. It's like, well, this North Node in Aries is like, it's calling us to act on impulse. And that's where our destiny is really going to unfold, is whenever our impulses and our instincts and that intuition, that fiery intuition, is really just going to kick us into the places that we're supposed to be. And as long as we're not getting trapped and sucked into codependent situations and, things where we're relying on a situation or a relationship too much, or we're getting caught up in too many relationships and not really being there for ourselves, it's going to really put roadblocks up to you really moving towards your destiny and your karmic purpose. Because that's what these nodes really represent, is not only just the past and the future and our souls coming in and out of this third dimensional reality from lifetime to lifetime, but it is that karmic destiny that we're playing out here on this earth. So this North Node in Aries is really calling us to individuate and embrace our self-identity and trust our instincts and our impulses, but that's going to be challenged by, these sort of deaths that were happening, or the deaths of other people around you who are also experiencing, just, a breakdown of, realizing like, wow, like I have to take a new path in life, or, like I climbed this far, and it's like, how am I going to get down? It's like, well, once you get to the top, it's like you have to walk down. You can't just, call a helicopter and say, hey, come pick me up. Like, when you get to the top of the mountain, it's like you gotta walk your ass down. I mean, the amount of time it takes to get to the top of the mountain is the same amount of time it's gonna be to get to the bottom. So, this is really that moment where we realize, like, hey, we've come this far, and the reason why we've come this far is to really find our identity, and that's where this North Node is taking us. And through these next 18 months, the North Node and Chiron are going to meet as well. So, this is where we're going to be really feeling where we haven't been in our identity, or maybe where we've been getting lost in other people, or too far into relationships and too many relationships. I mean, that's the thing about Libra. It's like, it's like you got so many relationships going on at once. It's like, well, who am I? And definitely with this North Node in Aries and Chiron that's eventually going to meet up there, it's like we really have to overcome these wounds, and where we aren't fully embracing who we are, or accepting who we are, or maybe putting on too many different identities to be something else just to fit in, and not being sure. Because that's what this Chiron and Aries has brought up, definitely, over the past few years. I mean, we've seen it in the world, and you feel it within yourself. It's like, people have been struggling very much so with who they are, or what they are. And that's what Aries is all about. It's like, this is who I am. A true Aries knows who the fuck they are. And they're unapologetic about it. With this Chiron in Aries, though, it's like, it's like, I don't know who I am, or I don't feel good about who I am. And it's like with this North Node in Aries here, it's like we're going to be facing how we need to get over that shit. And it's like, there's a lot of healing involved with this North Node Chiron when it comes to our ego, and where our egos are wounded, and we're insecure about who we are. And as the North Node moves through this cycle, I mean, there's going to be a lot of healing towards what our self-identity is as individuals, and where our individual identity fits into the collective as a whole. And definitely with this Pluto square, I mean, Chiron will square Pluto eventually too, which it might be in a quote, I don't know if Pluto will be in Capricorn. I'm not sure about that yet. But I mean, this is definitely the moment where, like, a lot of the larger issues going on in the world and the things that, we can get sucked into, that can really dictate our paths, or we feel like that control us. It's like, at this point, a lot of people are going to be waking up to the fact that it's like, you know what? Like, these larger issues don't dictate who I am and how others see me as well. It's like, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world on a larger scale. It's like we still have to embrace who we are and move forward to accomplish the goals that we need to accomplish, to serve our purpose. And that's what this North Node is all about. And this new moon is definitely like bringing up and kicking off this new phase of really feeling secure, like, and embracing those emotions of what we want that identity to be. Because with these cardinal signs, it's like, we got to know who we are, and we got to feel secure, and we need relationships to really, reflect who we are in life and actually make things happen in life, because we can't do things alone. And we got to have a purpose, to do that in the world for a higher reason, whether that's for God or for society or whatever. I mean, that's what these cardinal signs are all about. And with this T square kicking off, like, this is not just by accident that the moment that these nodes move in to Aries and Libra, squaring Pluto with a new moon in Cancer, creating a grand cross here, like this is no coincidence. I mean, and if you've been following the astrology, for a while, I mean, this is all. Nothing is by chance, I mean, this is an observation of time, and we are moving with it and moving through it, and this is a blueprint to navigate this in the best way we can. And we have to nurture ourselves emotionally, and definitely with this moon that's going to square Neptune, or not square Neptune, I'm sorry, trine Neptune after the new moon happens. Like, it's like, it's like we have to nurture ourselves spiritually, and nurture these subconscious things that tend to come up with this Neptune and Pisces. And, trust our subconscious that, like, that these visions and instincts and intuitions that we have about, the future is accurate and it's valid. Because sometimes when we have this Neptune and Pisces aspect, I mean, Venus has been making a in conjunction to Neptune, so it's like we've been feeling very insecure about these subconscious things. And that's the thing about Neptune, is that we have a vision, we have an instinct, we have an intuition about things, or we see the vision of the future, and it's like, oh, that's just a vision, that's just something in my mind, or that's just a projection of something that's not real, but I think where we're really going to be finding that security, where we can really nurture ourselves, is on that subconscious spiritual vibration. When we're willing to accept that, like, these visions and instincts are true, and I think that's where we're going to find the confidence to really embrace our self-identity, is when we're able to accept our visions and our intuition. Because it's one thing, we can logically put things in order and make decisions and take care of our environment externally, which is what this Mars and Virgo opposing Saturn is doing. It's cleaning up the mess of this subconscious stuff that's been going on in a very intense way. And this new moon has a lot of Mars energy going on here. with Mars of Virgo opposing Saturn, the North Node in Aries, dispositing Mars now. So like there's so much Mars energy coming in here, and we've had this North Node in Taurus with Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. So we've been in a very Venus time, a very feminine time. But we're headed much more into a Mars masculine energy here that we haven't felt in a while, like years. And with Venus retrograding and Leo come later this week into the weekend, we're definitely going to be feeling that more, where that feminine energy is going to be turning down a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot. And if you follow the astrology, I mean, we go through these dynamics of, when the feminine energy is really dominating and when it's, the masculine energy is taking the forefront. I mean, last year in 2022, Mars retrograding in Gemini, the masculine energy took a big back seat, because Mars, rules the masculine and the feminine, the duality, or Gemini rules the masculine and the feminine and the duality. So Gemini, in modern astrology, they try to call it the twins or whatever, and maybe so, but really traditionally and hermetically, it's the duality. It's the nature of masculine and feminine. That's Gemini. It's not the twins, it's that dual nature, the left brain and the right brain. So yeah, this masculine energy that's really coming in here with Mars opposing Saturn, because Saturn and Mars are the two malefics of the zodiac, or of the sky. So I mean, with this Mars, I mean, this is a real battle coming in here to really find our identity, because like, in order to get there, I mean, we got to break through these larger issues going on in the world that, there's this illusion that gets casted that these things like weigh on us, or we get sucked into these ideological situations that really have nothing to do with who we are as individuals. And we're going to be really waking up to that over the next 18 months here, and in order to really truly get there, like, we have to be secure in our emotions and, have that sense of security within our environment and have what we need to protect ourselves, to nurture ourselves, to take care of our bodies, take care of our families, and when we can do that, then we can have healthy relationships. But, we want to build a higher destiny. We want to, climb the mountain and get to the top and succeed and achieve things. But at this moment, over these next 18 months, we are truly discovering who we are as individuals. And, definitely over the past 12 years, especially when Saturn was in Libra in 2010, coming into 2011, when Neptune went to Pisces, definitely that ego or that sense of self took a backseat, big time. Like, if the 2000s were not that way, but by the time we got into the 2010s, it was like, people were stepping out of their egos much more. And this is coming full circle to this place. And at that time, in 2011, that's when we saw the North Node in Libra. 2011, 2012, before the nodes flipped into, or no, my bad, I'm sorry. That was the last time we saw the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, with the North Node. So it was 2014 and 15 when we had the North Node in Libra, and Mars retrograded across the North Node. So that's very significant. So, a lot of stuff coming up from that time, and relationships that we were getting too deep into where we lost touch with ourselves, and that 2014, 2015 time, and that's also the last time where Venus retrograded in Leo. A lot of this is coming up where we have to really heal a lot of that stuff, and especially with this Chiron coming onto the North Node. I mean, we're being called to heal all this stuff, you know, this detachment from the ego that we've experienced since 2010, 2011, 2014, 2015. Because that's changing now, and really on a higher level with this Pluto and Capricorn, that's just really breaking down the systems, and this is the last swing. I mean, we have a year and a half left of Pluto and Capricorn, roughly. I mean, a year and 5 months. November 2024 is the last time it's going to be here. So, on a higher level of things, the things we can't control as individuals. I'm talking the institutions and the banks and the governments and all that stuff. Like we know what the fuck is going on. So it's like we can't control any of that stuff. So there's a lot of pressure going on in the higher realms of things that, you know, there's a lot of power grabs, you know, people acting quickly because we know on an evolutionary level that this is the last moment where we have to act before like the real big shift comes when Pluto officially enters Aquarius, right? So this is it. But at the end of the day, with this North Node in Aries, it's like, you know, we can only do what we can for ourselves and heal our ego and, you know, have a healthy ego, you know, because with this North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra, it's like we don't want to get stuck too in that South Node right now. You know, we already got trapped in that in 2014 and 2015 whenever the Mars was retrograding across the North Node in Libra. So this is a moment for ourselves and healing ourselves and knowing our, you know, our self-identity for who it is and what we are and what our soul is really here to do. So that's what these nodes are about, is playing out your soul's karmic destiny. And at this moment, we all are going through a karmic moment of finding who we are. And that's really going to come down to our sense of self and having a healthy ego. Because, I mean, think about it. The past 10, 12 years, there's been so much talk about like, oh, you know, like, you know, you can't have too much of an ego, or you can't be too much, or you can't like be too over the top, because like, you know, you got to be, you know, in the middle, because if not, then you're arrogant or you have too much ego. Like that's been a big thing, you know, and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s culture. That's not what it was. That's not what was being expressed, especially in the 70s, the last time Chiron was in Aries. I mean, we saw some major, you know, self-identity expressions going on that were massive. I mean, they were weird. There's a lot of weird, you know, like weird costumes and identities on a cultural level that people were playing out in the 70s, you know. If you look back at that, I mean, look at what people were wearing, you know, down to the, you know, in the rock and roll era and the disco era and going into the 80s. It's like, you know, people were expressing their identities in very odd ways, trying to find themselves, you know, with, oh, today I'm going to try this on. I want to try this costume on. You know, it's like, you know, and shifting all the time into something else, trying to find what that is. And that's the soul trying to merge with the ego, you know. So the body and the ego can really like confidently move forward. I mean, with this North Node in Aries, it's like we got to embrace our self-confidence as much as possible, because if we don't and we get too sucked into what other people think, which is very Libra, we don't want to get stuck on that South Node of like caring too much about what other people think. It's like, oh, they're judging you. The South Node in Libra too is a lot of judgment's going to come up, and a lot of people are going to be taking their own path, doing their own thing and doing it unapologetically with intensity and fire, you know, and the people who are on the other end of that they're going to cast a lot of judgment, and those people or entities or structures or institutions who are going to judge or criticize, like, they won't stand. Like, this North Node is taking us into that place where we have to fully identify with who we are, and that is unique and different for everybody. And especially for the past couple of years, like, I'm not even a couple of years, I mean, for a while now, people have been struggling with who they are in the collective bit of things. It's like, oh, we all are one, so we all gotta limit who we are and sacrifice a piece of ourselves for the betterment of everybody else, so everybody else feels safe and secure. And it's like, that's not what this North Node in Aries is calling us to do. It's like, everybody has a unique individual purpose, and we all have to play it out, you know, because on that South Node, it's like, when we all are acting and playing out our soul's purpose to know who we are as individuals, then we can have healthy relationships that are confident, that are based on confidence, and not just codependent, you know, like an unstable tower leaning on each other that is inevitably gonna collapse. And that's what we're seeing with this Grand Cross on this new moon here, is that, you know, like, there are things that are inevitably gonna collapse, and it's necessary for the evolution of this next phase here. And, you know, I mean, with this next year and a half, like, we're gonna see the downfall of a lot of these larger things in the world, you know, and we don't have to get into the details of that. I mean, if you know what's going on, you know what I mean. And I don't want to get controversial here, but it's like, you know, as all this stuff's playing out in the higher realms of things, which is Capricorn, and it's Pluto and Capricorn, and things are going to be falling by the wayside, and, you know, gnarly shit is going to be happening. We are not stopping for who we are as people, because as all these larger things shift and break down, before we start moving into this Pluto Aquarius phase, we're being called to just unapologetically be ourselves. Straight up. I mean, let's just go back in time here. And it was 1967, 68. The North Node was in Aries. And what did we see at that time? I mean, we saw the Vietnam War rise up, right? And we saw the hippie movement and all this stuff, and we saw all the protests and everybody, like, standing up for what they think is right, casting their own judgment with the South Node in Libra. But at the same time, there were so many different sects of individuals, of different types of people, still doing their own thing as all this gnarly shit in the outside was happening. And that furthered us on into what the 70s were, and what the 80s were, and eventually what the 90s became, right? So, I mean, and then, you know, we saw the North Node in Aries in the mid 2000s, you know, as a lot of wars were happening. I mean, that's the thing. When we see this North Node in Aries, we see a lot of wars. I mean, it's Aries. It's the ruling sign of Mars. So if you look back at the history, I mean, pretty much every time the North Node moves in Aries, we're seeing wars, you know. So this is a very intense moment. But as all this stuff is happening, like, we are not losing sight and losing touch with who we are. Like, we're only coming into contact more with who we are. And that comes down to our ego and having a healthy ego. You know, because it's not a bad thing. You know, having an ego is very important, especially for this next transit here. And knowing who you are and confidently speaking that and doing what your intuition says to be right. I mean, Aries is a fire sign. You know, fire is intuitive. You know, the fire signs fully act on their instincts and just how they feel in the moment, and that's it. You know, they're not mercurial. It's pure instinct and boldness. You know, and the fire's either on and it's hot and it's burning, or there's no fire at all. You know, but you know, we've been really trapped and stuck in being too caught up in, um, you know, relationships that are just unhealthy, you know. And this is the moment where we are healing that. And Chiron transiting the North Node, I mean, we're going to experience a lot of healing over the next 18 months when it comes to knowing ourselves and how we are ourselves in relationships. And this is very important. So, you know, whatever is going on out in the world, this has nothing to do with who you are. You know, and this new moon in Cancer, it's really calling us to really just start this new cycle of embracing these emotions, even when they get intense and they get overwhelming. And, you know, like, especially when, you know, the downside or the darker side of relationships that, you know, we do have, when they get overwhelming, or, you know, it can seem to be too much. The pathway out of that is just, you know, doing the work for yourself. You know, Aries, you know, really needs that self-care and it needs that self-love. So it's like when all this chaos, you know, comes down to our relationships and just all the crazy shit in the world, it's like, you know, where we're going to find healing and, you know, true nurturing is by loving ourselves. And that's what this North Node is all about. And this new moon is really kicking that off, and it's setting the tone, you know, for that emotional flow of how to get there, you know, because fire and water, I mean, they might not, you know, like each other, but at the same way, they kind of act in the similar sense of, you know, how their instincts and their intuition play a part, you know. You know, the fire has to burn and the water has to flow, you know. So it really comes down to, you know, letting that intuition and your instincts and your creativity flow, but that passion has to burn, you know, for who you are. This is not really the moment to be getting stuck in, you know, judging other people or judging the world, or, you know, be judging yourself. You know, it's like, you know, letting go of the past and really just moving forward towards getting to know yourself more, because that's what we're going to be doing here over the next 18 months. It's like we're really going to be getting to know ourselves more than ever. And every time the North Node's in Aries, it's like we really revisit and reevaluate who we are as people. So, I mean, this is the most important day of the year, I think, by far. This is the most important pivotal moment, because from this moment on, us as individuals, or you as an individual, like, I mean, you'll feel it. Definitely by the time you get to December, by the time you get to the Cancer full moon, you're going to see that, like, how quickly the desire and the instinct to really take a new course for yourself and because of yourself, and maybe because of relationship issues that triggered you to just take your own path, like, you're going to see how quickly this is going to change here. Because by the time you get to the Cancer full moon in, well, January, actually, us as individuals are going to be in a whole new place, and we're going to see for the first time how that's starting to play out. Um, you know, I mean, the eclipse is coming up in Aries and Libra in October, September and October. We'll get some good insight to that, but definitely by the full moon in Cancer, it's going to come full circle because this is all starting on the new moon in Cancer. So every time these nodes get activated, it's really going to come back to this moment and what was occurring within these 6 months here. So this will be unforgettable, for sure. This will be a very unforgettable new moon, an unforgettable nodal shift, and Venus is going retrograde later this week. So this is no surprise and no coincidence that this is all happening at once. So this is a new karmic destiny unfolding for us as individuals and the collective, because that's really what it is. It's like once we come into this world and we come out of the womb, it's like our umbilical cords are connected to our mother, and this is very Cancerian, the womb. But once that cord is cut, that's when we truly become who we are. And when we separate from source, that is a very traumatic thing. This is very Pluto. Is when we separate from source. When we're first, gestating, it's like, the source of our life is that connectivity to our mother. And yeah, once we separate from that, that's a very traumatic experience. So think about it in a way of like this North Node in Aries. It's like to really become yourself. It's very uncomfortable. It's very difficult. You got to fight for your own air. You got to, get your own food. I mean, like, you have to nurture yourself at that point, and that's what it is when you separate from your mother and the umbilical cord. Is that it's that journey towards becoming who you are on your own. So that's what this North Node in Aries journey is going to be about, and especially being kicked off by this new moon in Cancer opposing Pluto. So we're individuating and separating from source at this time. And it's exciting. I mean, Mercury's also come off this square to Uranus too. Or Jupiter, I'm sorry. It's going to square Uranus here within the next week. So, like, there's a lot of confidence and big things that we're trying to happen. It's just, we got to be practical and humble about it and not get too boastful and, over the top about it. And this is not a time to fucking gamble and throw it all into one pot. It's like big things are happening for all of us. But we want to be humble, and be confident in that what we're expanding is going to bring us the right things, the right materials, and the right resources that we need. But yeah, just got to be humble with this Mercury squaring Jupiter and Uranus. So we got the 10 of Pentacles, and this is perfect for the new moon in Cancer here. So, I mean, truly where the value lies is, in our family structure. This is very much a new moon in Cancer opposing Pluto here. But also this Jupiter and Taurus, it's like our true value lies in the structure that we create in the world and our destiny that we follow in the world. But also we can't do that without the people that we love and, family, and nurturing who we are, and it's like definitely with a lot of massive things happening in the world. It's like we have to build our own castle, it's like we have to create an environment that is going to protect us all as, a group, to really sustain and nurture each other. And this is very like coming into Pluto and Aquarius here, where it's like we're going to be individuating and separating into groups anyway. But, I think this is definitely a sense of like, the value that we really are creating is in the groups and in our families and communities that we're trying to develop. And as we're coming into ourselves and getting to know ourselves more with this North Node in Aries, this is going to give us the opportunity to really band together even stronger, for sure, as we're coming into this Pluto in Aquarius. So, the value lies in our family and our community, and we can't chase our larger dreams and our destiny without that rooted structure of where that true value lies, and where we come from, and the source of where we come from. So get ready. We're on a new journey here. We're in a new world. So I hope you all have a lovely Monday and a lovely new moon, and I will see you guys on Tuesday. Peace out.